Well, it's exactly 59 minutes past the hour 7, just exactly 1 minute for it to clock 8 a.m. Good morning and thank you for keeping it right here on Sunrise. See you just in time for Twitter Jabs Part 2. And today we are discussing the future of IPOD in Uganda. Of course, this comes at a time when the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy suspended its support to the inter-party organization for dialogue IPOD until the National Unity Platform joins. Well, according to a statement that was put on their website, and I'll just be reading out snippets of it. Well, the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy Uganda has been supporting the inter-party organization dialogue since 2010. Well, as a secretariat of the dialogue platform, the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy Uganda aimed to provide a safe space for inclusive, respectful and effective dialogue between Ugandan parties in parliament. Well, according to them, now that the National Unity Platform, the leading opposition party in Uganda, has announced that they will not be subscribing to the Memorandum of Understanding, they say that they will be pulling out their funding. Now, these are two shocks for them because also the DGF has said that they will be closing shop in Uganda come December 2022. Well, that is what we are going to be discussing, looking at the future of IPOD. And joining me at the center of this discussion is a man that I'm sure is very, very familiar to your faces, and he's none other than Dr. Rogers Barigayomwe, and he is a political analyst as well as the chairman for the Labour Party. Good morning, sir, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me here. Good morning, our viewers.
Okay, you look amazing in the blue. I love the suit, absolutely ravishing.
Thank you.
Okay, so my first question, and let's cut right to the chase. So, in your capacity as a political analyst and the chairman of the Labour Party, would you say that IPOD has lived to its expectations and also objectives that it was back in 2010 set to achieve?
They've already confessed that they've not lived to the confession. But in the first place, what I will discuss was that IPOD was a big joke. Because this is it should be. The funders wanted to fund political dialogue. But they failed to research and know that actually the serious political parties are not even in IPOD. I'll give you an example. Talk about NRM. It's a military formation. It's never a political party. And look at FDC. Was formed by people from NRM. The founders who were military people.
Yes.
Kiza Besigye. No, personally, I think it was these other people have maybe the guns, they don't have the stones. So the real political parties, like Labour Party, have never been involved in serious dialogue, because in Uganda here it's about strength and fighting, but the political strategies or strategies have never been consulted and they are out of IPOD. What if you have to have a dialogue, have a meaningful dialogue of the future of Uganda? So the dialogue should be, and what should have been funded actually is all the ideas from scratch, because here, everyone knows that if you are going to be interested in only members of parliament, this is a monetarized system where you're not going to get any sense but people who buy themselves to parliament. If you want ideas, come to universities, go to the public down there and get people's ideas, not necessarily from people who are composed from parliament, because this is a nonsensical parliament where people buy themselves to parliament. So in the first place, IPOD was a joke, and that's why you see it failing, because they found out, even the members themselves are confessing that what they wanted, that Ugandans dialogue we didn't get the result. It is instead a selfish kind of, you saw it, sharing money. Even these people, the funders, the Netherlands Institute has realized that actually these people go in to just share money and not to bring ideas which help Ugandans. We had workers strike here. Have you seen any serious political party talk about their interests? It is just sharing resources. So it was bound to fail.
Okay. Now, you highlighted something in regard to Labour Party, because you said most of the serious political parties are not involved when it comes to IPOD. So I would pose this question to you as the chairman of the Labour Party. Why is it that you haven't joined IPOD as yet? Is it because, again, according to you, IPOD is a joke?
Yeah, one of the things is that why some because political ideas have not come in the front, and that one I take it to the Ugandans. One, I would say, why would the ruling government, for example, which criticizes external influence in politics, allow an IPOD to fund their politics? That they criticize. They say it's sort of a neo-colonialism. Why Labour Party hasn't participated is because Ugandans have to wake up and know that political business is business for Ugandans. And the ruling party is not interested in any dialogue. Because, let me give you an example. Its principal recently said he wants to crush all political parties. And what happens is, if, for example, you have a big company, I will use the biggest company, like MTN.
Yes.
MTN is the biggest company here in Uganda. If you're a biggest company and you go for the auditors, and you go and get your auditors from NASA, what I mean, you're a good company,
yes,
but you want fake auditors to audit you, because oppositional parties are supposed to audit the ruling government.
Yes.
But you're interested in getting fake auditors. This is the state that the ruling government said it will crush sensible people and it will get fake auditors. And that's why you see a ruling party having about 400 members of parliament, the opposition party start from 50. Is there any serious business in Uganda? So they've killed institutions, because institutions don't start with these public institutions, you see, they start with a political party.
Okay.
Political parties should be strong. Where like in just across Kenya, where you see actually sort of the opposition, they have even more MPs than, they usually have close, and sometimes the opposition could have more members of parliament. So that is sensible. You could fund such an institute. But to fund this IPOD, you would even actually instead be funding the ruling government, the NRM, because you know they were the biggest beneficiaries. It was constituted that the ones who have more MPs get more funding. So it is a hoax in it. It is stupidity, actually.
You seem to be sharing the same sentiments with a section of people on Twitter. And earlier on in the Twitter Jobs Part 1, Priv and I did read out a tweet where people feel that when it comes to the IPOD, it's just another arm of parliament, actually, because either what is discussed is not put into practice, or it's just there to actually fund and, you know, massage the ego of the NRM party as well. So
yes, it is actually like how you see that the NRM was, I've told you, it's a military institution. And it came militarily. Then when it came to government, it's like started now to show that we want to have sort of political party, kind of multi-party democracy.
yes.
First they were one party, then they tried to invite people who could legitimize their existence militarily. But they've never, in principle, and embraced the fact that we want ideas which will build Uganda. So, in a way, they invite weak parties, especially like now you see, just recently we saw their principal calling forth the leader of JEMA,
yes,
who he knows JEMA has seriously no impact. Yep. If it was in principle, they would call these ones who have at least 50. Yep. But there is no serious discussion on political formation in Uganda. They prefer to engage or weaken instead of strengthening. Now, the funders, what the funders would have done is done good research and known that actually they only need to fund the opposition, because right now the ruling government gets its resources from, it is fused with the state. So it gets its resources from the state. So their interest would be in funding genuine political formation. Like I've given you an example of a Labour Party where workers, teachers, there are some teachers, you talk about the ones in primary, in the public, but in private who get less than 50,000, less than a house girl. And now you think you are talking about serious political business when you've shut out the whole Labour Party because it does not have members in parliament. Let me give you an example. The ruling party, NRM, it had no presence in 1980 in the parliament because its one member, who was Crispus Kiyonga, went in rebellion. So if there was an IPOD then, there would be no serious discussion because the NRM then was left out. So I'm telling you that there is circus right now in IPOD and in parliament because some serious players in this country have been left out. And the serious players who fund, you're a laborer, I'm a laborer, we fund about 80% of the budget.
Yes.
But we are left out of this discussion. So whoever is discussing is a joker. And so the IPOD was bound to fail because of these things.
So Dr. Rogers, basing on what you have already said, would you say that the National Unity Platform is right in declining joining IPOD, of course, despite it being the biggest political party so far here in Uganda?
It is. NUP is right in a way that it has to frustrate the efforts. You know, like I've told you, this is sort of political comedy to show that we are dialoguing, yet we are leaving out the real Ugandans out of a dialogue. Like I've given you an example where about 90% of the laborers in Uganda are left out and now there is a dialogue. The dialogue is just benefiting politicians who pick these, because when they go to these hotels, they get allowances, they get enriched by the IPOD money. But which impact, if you are to measure impact, is that impact, does it streamline to the lowest Ugandan? No.
Of course, them being here for a period of 10 years, what do they have to show for themselves? It's very important also that we highlight on that.
Exactly. That's why I'm saying and those people do their research. They did like sort of basically statistical work and found out that actually their impact was, for me, I think it is even negative, because the biggest people, they are funding the bullies. Like I've told you, IPOD should not even give 1% of any money to the ruling government because it's already getting the money from the state. But now it is about because they constitute about 70% of parliament, no, actually about 80. Now they constitute about 80% of the funds of IPOD. So that is a joke they've been realizing they've been doing. And these same people who they've been funding 80%, again criticize them. When it reaches election, you know, in about 3 months to election, that's when other political parties are allowed to source for fund. Then they block every resource which is coming in from any other source. You notice how selfish it is. They block resources from any other. Now, how do you expect other political parties to engage? You are taking the bulk of IPOD money, which you say that foreigners should not interfere, and you are allowed to receive that money. If Ugandans, actually, I tell people that, like Jesus said that, foolish Galatian, foolish Ugandan, who bewitched you to reach this level that these people have
double standards.
Yeah, exactly. Fooled you for this long, and you are still sleeping. It is the Ugandans, us. I tell people, it is us Ugandans who should be funding political parties. Laborers, teachers were there. We are not getting enough pay. Instead of them forfeiting about 5,000 from their salaries, collective bargaining, and take on government, they are waiting for government to speak for them. All these other political parties which are not interested in their fate, they don't feel their pinch on a daily. So I insist Ugandans should be funding. We should be funding our political parties. And the sensible political parties, like I will tell you, Labour Party, right now is funded by Uganda. But all these other things, these military formation, like the NRM, look for where they got their funds, from foreigners, their initial funds. So Ugandans, we should start a mechanism of funding for our political party. At least the initial funds should come from Ugandans.
Okay, so now still taking a look at political parties that have decided not also to renew their membership for the IPOD. Among them is Forum for Democratic Change. Why, as a political analyst, why do you think they're hesitant to renew their membership when it comes to IPOD? Do you think this is partly because of the fact that NUP has strongly refused to join the IPOD?
Yeah, in politics there is what you call sabotage.
Intentional sabotage?
Yeah, sometimes it is intentional. It was successful. It was what Nelson Mandela used in South Africa. It is what Yoweri Museveni used to become president. Never an election. So these, until you sabotage the system, you can never get results. So what NUP and now FDC are doing is to sabotage, and that's the right way. Otherwise, like, will not always escort you to the high table and you take the high meal and you give miss crumbs. So in a way, they have to sabotage the system. Maturity, if they were to be taken to be serious parties in the future, if they kept quiet, just like you see the DP and UPC, they are in the museum, they will never resurrect again in Uganda because they have betrayed Ugandans. Yeah? They are always escorting the ruling party, and they've just taken themselves to be very unserious political players. So if NUP and FDC did not do the same, in future would not have a political contest. And I'll speak authoritatively that, let's say, give it 20 years time, NRM will be a party like how you see UPC is a party only in Lango. NRM will be only in Nyabushozi, led by a son of the former president.
And until then.
Yes, so now that's why I say, if we are talking about the future of Uganda, we should not talk about these military formations. We should talk about every player in Uganda coming to dialogue. And it is in the interest of the ruling party, if it wants a legacy, that it genuinely scouts out for Ugandan views, not for selfish views, and also not to weaken the oppositional party, but to strengthen them, because even their own people are not going to leave. They are staying in this Uganda. The UPC is existing somewhere in Lango, but it is being called to participate. So the NRM should also have foresight to see where it is going.
Okay, now let's handle the aspect of foreign funding, because now and again this is a conversation that does not sit well with most Ugandans, constantly coming out and saying, why do we need funding from European countries? However, when the DGF, as well as, I beg your pardon, when the Democratic Government Facility, which is the DGF, as well as the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy, pulled out, very many Ugandans came out to complain, including now the NRM Secretariat. So wouldn't you say these are double standards for us to say we do not want funding from European countries, but again, now that they have pulled out from funding IPOD, we are again all up in arms?
Yeah, this is hypocrisy. Many times we carelessly gauge, actually say they shouldn't interfere, they shouldn't fund. Then most of our budgets, the political even parties, are being funded by these foreigners. This is a wrong element, and we should revisit it. Starting, I thought the government, especially the ruling government, should be wiser in that. Foreign funding is good in a way, because for me, if it was in training personality, because if you see these foreign democracies, there are some elements you have to keep, to do what? To pick from them, especially because of their stability. I wouldn't mind NRM benchmarking the Chinese Communist Party, because it's been around for some time. Send people to study their system, to study the system of the Americans, of the UK. But if it comes to only money, I know Ugandans, and I know the character of the people, both in the ruling party and some of the oppositional element, that they will just go to pick the money and learn nothing and forget nothing.
They learnt nothing and forgot nothing.
True.
Okay, so still in relation to that, well, the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy says that the major reason as to why they are withdrawing from funding the IPOD is because the immense pressure from the diaspora chapter of the demonstrations at the head office that was at the Dutch Parliament, demanding that the institute stops support of the IPOD. So my question is, isn't the National Unity Platform just witch hunting the IPOD?
In a way, because, for example, right now, and that's why I want Ugandans, we have to have a serious conversation. What if the NUP was in the ruling government? What would they do? So, any dialogue is good. Any funding of a dialogue, I'm an expert and a doctorate in conflict management. Dialogue, but we have to identify steps of dialogue. Actually, to be sincere, NUP would be saying this, at Ugandan level, dialogue should start at the bottom top. The dialogue should start in our villages to find out. It should have, including
inclusiveness.
Inclusiveness. Have the women see the gender issues, see the labor issues from the grassroots. And actually, for me, if the IPOD, or they funded the constitutional review, instead, if they funded that kind of facility, I would be more open, because they want to get the ideas from the grassroots. This thing of funding it from already a rotten stage, which all Ugandans we know, from our public service we are funding a rotten group. It is very unfortunate for a country. In any case, if they are giving them Christmas parties or what, they already have enough. So the people they are funding are the wrong people. And even if you went to find out how the impact of this money, where it goes, you will see it's going to build houses, make them get more girlfriends, and it is not impacting on Uganda. But let them refund a constitutional review process. That one is clear. Let them go and get real issues. Let them do only their own statistical findings to find out, do people want term limits or they don't? Should we restore them? Just doing this statistical thing, just let them fund those processes and they will be shocked by their finding. I don't know why they are more interested in funding impunity. And these people they are funding, they don't need their funds. They've even told them that we don't need your funds, and I don't know why. Is it because democracy?
Dr. Rajas, when you talk about and when you bring out and highlight the aspect of impunity, that's very strong words. But even from the beginning of the conversation, you have pointed out a number of loopholes that you feel should be handled for IPOD to fully achieve its objectives. So in your capacity as a political analyst, how can IPOD very well arrange themselves so that they are able to achieve the objectives as to why it was set back in 2010?
Yeah, like I've said, IPOD, if they were to do research, and even if I was to do it just in Kampala, they would notice that actually more than 70% of Ugandans don't belong to political parties. And I think you know that is true. Do you get it? And people even who vote NUP, by the way, are not members of NUP. People who vote NRM are not members of NRM. They vote sentiment, some tribal sentiment, sometimes towards the elections, towards the election. Ugandans just vote, but they don't belong to political parties. So if they want anything to help Ugandans, it should be targeted to Ugandans. Members of political parties here in Uganda, holders of political cards are less than 10%. And political parties are bound to evolve. You see, last time it was FDC, the oppositional. NUP, I will tell you the next time it will not be NUP, it will be another leader of opposition. Then, so long as some people are still living, the NRM will always be the ruling party for some time. So, now if IPOD is interested in targeting the interests of Ugandans, like you we should be focused. And if these parties are more interested in the interest of Uganda, then they should take their interests, 90% who don't belong to political parties. Who they look, what are the views of Uganda?
Okay.
How do we make this system? One of the system, like I tell you, and it is being used in, is a rotational system, which is being used in Switzerland. Why don't we benchmark that system? It will take away tribalism from our society. Right now, people who were members of FDC crossed back to vote Museveni, not because they like NRM, but because some were Banyankole now, because another oppositional party member has come. So these are issues. We researchers have brought them up. They are in our books of research. With our little resources, we brought it up. And would expect these people, Netherlands Institute of Democracy, to fund even us researchers, because for us we use statistics, we are academicians, and we find out the problem of Uganda. But instead, they are funding the problems of Uganda. Who are these people who don't want to leave power?
Okay, Dr. Rogers, it's always a pleasure talking to you and having very insightful and interesting discussions. But before we do say goodbye, any parting shots or remarks in regard to the future of IPOD, which is the discussion that we're having this morning?
The IPOD should be dispersed. They should ban it. The ruling party should be the first to say they don't need foreign, like they have to walk the talk. I'm surprised they signed the NRM. Then DP, I'm surprised Norbert Mao. So I would say that the funding should be focused on the real issues Ugandans are facing.
Okay. Well, we do thank you so much for being a part of Sunrise at Sea. But just one last question. Are there any propositions to have IPOD funded by Ugandan taxpayers have been thrown in? Do you think that it is worth it? Because some of the propositions that, and earlier on in the Twitter Jabs part 1, among the conversations that we're having with Priva, is the fact that if DGF and of course the Netherlands Institute has pulled out from funding the IPOD, this particular money will somehow have to come from the taxpayers' money. So do you think it is worth going for?
It is, one of our leaders said it, I think it was our president, that we can fund ourselves. I haven't seen that come. You know, they are good at talking, but it's not worth our taxpayers' money going to IPOD. Like I've told you, IPOD is a useless vehicle. What we should do is to sensitize Ugandans to fund their small political formation, even if they look small. Like you see Labour Party, have a farmers party. You fund your thing and you are funding ideas. Get your little resources. Let the workers, every salary, pick your 1%, give it, then it helps you in political bargaining.
Okay.
You don't need to tax us to fund this IPOD, which the whole of Parliament, like I've told you, Parliament is not taking the interest of Ugandans. And IPOD means parties who are being represented in Parliament. Who went to Parliament for on monetary basis? No, most of the members of Parliament, about 80% of them, bought their way to, bribed their way to Parliament. Now, how do you fund such kind of institute? Yet you know we have existing problems.
Dr. Rogers, I'll cut you short right there because time is not on our side. However, that's a conversation for another day. And we do thank you, of course, for being a part of Sunrise at Sea. It's always a pleasure having you here.
Pleasure to have you.
Okay, well, according to latest report, well, it has been revealed that only 4 political parties so far belong to the IPOD, and that is GEMA, there is NRM, DP, as well as PP have joined the IPOD, leaving out the National Unity Platform as well as Forum for Democratic Change. Well, when it comes to Forum for Democratic Change, they are still consulting on their participation, while NUP has completely declined to join the forum. Now, when it comes to UPC has indicated that it is willing to sign the memorandum if there can be some clarification of the fate of unimplemented resolutions from the previous IPOD summit. Again, it goes back to accountability. But that winds up the conversation that we had for you this morning on the Twitter Jabs. And I was seated with Dr. Rogers, and he was giving us an insight, and of course, as a political analyst, letting us know the future of IPOD in Uganda. Well, up next is our views, and today we are going to be looking at hypervisibility. Keep watching Sunrise at Sea and don't blink. Until next time, good morning.